In New York, inmates and officers save a female correction officer from being strangled.
This is Correctional Officers in the News with your host, Lerone Kuntz.
Now, this incident took place on Rikers Island in New York City in a jail called Anna M. Cross Center. An inmate lured a female officer into the pantry by telling her that an officer had left pepper spray in the pantry. When she went in to investigate, the inmate came in behind her, locked the door, took his sweatshirt, put it around her neck, and started strangling her. Slammed her face down onto the floor and continued to strangle her and drag her. At which point, officers and inmates were able to kick the door in and save the officer. Now, this is a very serious incident. This officer could have lost her life during this attack. This inmate that attacked her has also served time for rape and is currently being held for forcible touching. So this could have been a totally different outcome. Luckily, the officer was not seriously injured. She was taken to the hospital and released. But thank goodness the officers and the inmates were able to kick that door in and save this officer. Now, this is a very disturbing incident. And this incident to me is reminiscent of another incident that happened at that same jail in 2015. And the headline for that incident is, and I'm going to read it, Rikers Island inmate saved prison guard from rape by fellow convict. And in this situation, an inmate was able to get access into the A station where the officer was. He told her that he needed to get a mattress, so she let him in. He locked himself inside with the officer and started to sexually assault her. At which point, officers and inmates were able to pry a section of the plexiglass open wide enough for a skinny inmate to go through and open the door. And at that point, inmates and officers rushed in and got the inmate off the officer. This is a very disturbing event. It was a very disturbing event. One of the things that happened during this event, I'm going to read right now. The inmate's name is Young. And in this article, it says, I quote, "During the attack, Young, who is 5'9" and weighs 290 pounds, pulled down his pants and began masturbating while choking the officer," court records show. There's other details that are in the article, but that tells you the severity of this attack. And what's also in this article and what's also astounding about this whole situation was that the Department of Correction treated this as a routine incident. They had no intentions of charging this inmate with sexual assault or attempted rape. It wasn't until officers refused to take their posts when the department decided to push the DA's office to charge this inmate. So had not officers taken action, this would have been swept under the rug. And this is bad for morale. If you're trying to run a department and you need officers to believe in what they're doing and to do their job to the fullest of their ability and at times go beyond the call of duty, you have to support the officers, and you got to take these situations very seriously, and you have to prosecute these inmates when they do these types of things to officers. You can't sweep this under the rug, and this has a detrimental effect on morale. Now, another incident that happened that came to light this week in New York City on Rikers Island was an officer a year ago was fired after she was the victim of an attack on Rikers Island. This officer, the article says, she was able to get her job back, but that was only after she went to court. The headline of the article, which I will post, it reads, "Wrongfully fired Rikers Island correction officer wins legal fight to regain her job, collect back pay." And I just would like to commend them for using the term correction officer, because usually they say prison guard, but they did use the word correction officer in this article. And in this article, it tells of this officer who had less than 2 years on the job, who was attacked by an inmate, really two inmates, and she damaged her thumb, she damaged her shoulder, and she damaged her foot. She had to have stitches, she had to have surgery, she had to have bone grafts, and even after she had her surgery and her bone grafts and everything, she came to work and worked light duty and was able to get back to full duty, at which point 2 weeks later they fired her. Now, the officer went to court and she was able to get her job back and $40,000 of back pay back. But what is the rationale of the department to fire a correction officer who's been injured in the line of duty? You know, what is the benefit for the department to do that? I mean, is there some sort of financial benefit for doing that? Do they think that, hey, this officer is injured, she may go out sick again, or she may need to have more surgery done, so we don't want to pay for that? Is that it? You know what I mean? Is their reasoning that shallow, that they would fire an officer that's been injured in the line of duty and has worked her way back to coming to work full duty, and at that point you fire her? What does that say to the other correction officers in this system? That you can work, be injured in an altercation with an inmate, and the department will look for a way to get rid of you and fire you. This has a detrimental effect on morale, and what administrators need to understand is that you can't run a jail if you have officers that don't believe that they are being treated properly, or don't believe that the department that they work for has their back. You can't run a system like that, because what happens is officers will just do the bare minimum. And in this line of work, you cannot have officers that just do the bare minimum. Officers need to know that they have the support of the administration when they go about their duties. Officers from time to time have to go beyond the call of duty in order to maintain the good functioning and the safety of the institution. Sometimes officers will have to do things that put them in jeopardy, that may cause them to be injured. But they understand that it's for the greater good. When you chip away at that morale, then you have officers that are reluctant to go beyond the call of duty and just want to go and do just the bare minimum. And that's the recipe for disaster. You can't run an institution like that. So you have to trust the officers, and you have to support the officers, and you have to pay attention to the morale of the officers, because if not, you're just like a dog chasing your tail. If you're trying to save money by treating officers bad and getting rid of officers and charging officers with all type of crazy crimes and things like that, or charge them for their dealings with inmates and things like that in terms of force and things, if you go overboard with that, what you'll have more violence, you'll have more incidents, because officers will not want to act and won't want to go beyond the call of duty to stop these things from happening. So if you're an administrator and you're watching this, be careful about the message that you're sending to your staff. In this case, an officer was fired that was injured through no fault of her own. She was attacked by two inmates and damaged her shoulder, thumb, and foot, and did everything that she was supposed to do to get back to work and was fired. This has a detrimental effect on morale. New York, get it together. Officers are losing faith in the system, and that is not a good recipe to have a safe and functioning department. So with that, as always, before I go, if you have any questions, concerns, please leave them in the comment section below. And until next time, as always, peace and stay safe.
This is Correctional Officers in the News with your host, Lerone Kuntz.